All of our guests join us on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. Our next guest, former MSU athletic director, current Arizona Wildcat AD, friend of the show. He is Greg Byrne. Greg, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Bo?
Man, we're doing really well, and thanks for your time. I know you're about to jump on a plane this morning, but we wanted to talk about your friend and colleague John Cohen, announced as the new athletic director at MSU, and why is John's skill set right to be an athletic administrator and quote unquote CEO of a Power 5 program?
Yeah, good question. I think that the days of the old coach becoming the AD, like you used to be maybe in the 60s, 70s, even in the 80s, I think those times have passed. However, John is very unique and has a skill set that fits him extremely well for the job at Mississippi State. He's a person that not only was is a heck of a baseball coach, but he saw the big picture for the department and was intimately involved both with myself and with Scott on understanding what the different roles the department had to serve for the entire department, for all the student athletes, for the fans, for the university itself. And he not only had paid attention to that, he'd been very involved with it over the last several years, hiring coaches, understanding budgets, understanding marketing and fundraising and all the different things that go into it on the operations side too. And so that's why Scott had made him the associate AD, I think, during his last contract extension. And John had a genuine interest in doing this and had been preparing himself for many years to have, if this opportunity come along, that he'd have a shot. So when Dr. Keenum decided that he was a legitimate candidate, I was really happy to hear that. And I was really pleased when Dr. Keenum decided that was the right hire for Mississippi State. I think that John will be a great fit and will bring a lot of knowledge and experience that will do well for Mississippi State, not only with the school itself, but also nationally as well and within the SEC.
Greg Byrne on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Greg worked with John Cohen at Kentucky and at Mississippi State. They're friends and colleagues, and now, of course, athletic directors at Power 5 programs. Greg, you made the comment on this show years ago that you and Mitch Barnhart, Scott Strickland, all those guys at Kentucky, once Cohen was hired and y'all had an opportunity to see how he managed and operated the baseball program, that kind of became the blueprint for what you looked for next, whether it was volleyball, football, or whatnot. Why was that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, any coach that's going to have success obviously has to be very driven, and to succeed, it has to understand every aspect of it, from the recruiting standpoint, the coaching standpoint, academics, compliance, everything that goes into it, managing budgets. And John just had the total just package and ability to understand all the different dynamics that go into it. And so seeing him take a program like Kentucky baseball, which, Bo and you and the SEC fans know that has been historically strong, and he went and won an SEC championship, got him in a place that they were competing at the highest levels to get to Omaha, and a place at the northernmost school from a baseball standpoint. You look from a baseball standpoint across the country, that it's usually the southern schools, whether it's out west or whether it's in the southern part of the country, that have historically had the best chance. There's examples of others that have been able to get to Omaha in spite of that, but he was able to have a plan that worked for Kentucky. He had a plan that worked for Mississippi State. And so just from every aspect of what you wanted from a head coach, he fit the blueprint as well as anybody I'd ever seen and been a part of it. And then you go out and try to find coaches that had that similar approach whenever you hire them. And we were fortunate at Mississippi State, got a few of them, and that's obviously done well for the school and its ability to get better.
Greg Byrne hired John Cohen at Mississippi State as the head baseball coach. He joins us on the New Belgium Fat Tire Hotline. He is the athletic director for Arizona. So, Greg, as someone who's been in this for so long, but now been an AD for over a decade at MSU in Arizona, what's more difficult in your position? Is it evaluating which coach to hire, depending on sport? Is it giving them everything that they need, all the pieces to the puzzle to be successful? Or is it knowing when to extend a coach's contract or when they're just not going to get it done?
Yeah, that's a good question, Bo. I think, could I say D, all of the above? The reality is ADs, we're going to get judged on all those things. And right now in today's crazy world of college athletics, you look at where some of the buyouts are for coaches and trying to manage that. And, you have to be able to identify, you have to be able to recruit good coaches, and you have to understand your model. The reality is at Arizona and at Mississippi State too, we're not going to probably outspend Texas on a coach.
Right.
And so we have to find who is the up and comer. I've looked at almost all my coaching hires, and I've just tried to say I'm going to try to find people who are on their way up from a professional standpoint, who I think have a lot of the energy and excitement and passion and also integrity to go out and give you the best chance to have success on the field and courts everywhere else. Do it within the rules. Do it so it doesn't embarrass the university, and understand what that model is. And at Arizona and at Mississippi State as well, we tried to find those types of people. Now, John was probably the most experienced coach I had hired at that time, and really to this day one of the most experienced coaches I've hired. That he'd been able to do it, but I also understood what the importance was of Mississippi State baseball, what it meant to the university, what it meant to the state, the fan base, and so that's why it was worth investing in John to come to Mississippi State at the time. But all those things you just listed and mentioned are critical, and not one of them I don't think is more important than the other, but they're all important for you to have success as a program, for you to have success as an athletics director.
Greg Byrne on the Out of Bounds show. So, Greg, as far as time management when you're an AD and you look at everything that y'all have to do, manage all the sports and the coaches, the fiscal and facility piece, and then the fundraising piece, could you give us an idea as far as how much you spend? How does that look on on a monthly or quarterly basis? How about that?
Yeah. Well, I get asked all the time what my typical day is like, and the thing is that there's really not a typical day. When you have 500 student athletes, you have the coaches that go along for the 20 teams at Arizona that we have. I think Mississippi State has 19 teams, if I'm not mistaken, and trying to balance with 12,000 Wildcat Club members here, and season ticket holders and all those things. You got the conference, the NCAA, the shoe companies, agents, the media. There isn't a day where you're not dealing with something that sometimes is very unique and trying to manage it in the appropriate manner. And so there's some days where I'll spend the entire day on fundraising, and there's some weeks where I won't touch it for an entire week because of different things that we're dealing with student athletes and teams and coaches. So that's one of the things I actually love most about the job is how different it is, and it's never stagnant. You're never going to get bored with what you're dealing with, and that's fun to be a part of that. Now, with that, the reality is, and Regina, we're actually in an Uber in San Francisco on the way to the airport. But Regina will tell you that my wife. There's a lot of nights and weekends and times where we don't see each other a whole lot, and she has to be committed for us to be able to have success as a program. So, but obviously it's worked well for us, and we've been very fortunate in the process. But there are no 2 days that are alike, and in a lot of ways, I feel very fortunate for that.
What about, you'll always have affection and affinity for MSU with everything Associate AD and AD. I know you probably didn't get to watch the game because you had a bunch of other stuff going on, but what did you think about what happened in Starkville over the weekend? As you know, this coaches go through this. Even the Sean Millers probably go through this every now and then, not to maybe this extent, but it's been a tough season in Starkville. Dan lost 3 games at the last play of the game, and he beat number 4 A&M. What did you think about that over the weekend?
Well, I was following the game on Twitter. We were up in the Palouse in Pullman, Washington, and we didn't have a very good day. But it was I was thrilled for Dan, and I know he's been under some heat this year. Dan hasn't forgotten how to coach the game of football, and the excitement and the level that he's brought to Mississippi State is pretty much uncharted territory. I mean, to get to number one in the country, and the way that the fan base has rallied around him, and the team has been really good. And one of the things as the AD that you have to do is, the reality is we are an emotional buy, and after tough games, after tough losses, you're going to have fans say, hey, coach doesn't know what he's doing. Why did he call this on 3rd and 4? And you look and say, you got to make changes. And in reality, you look at the long-term successes of programs, they often are going to, they're going to have stability as part of that. And Dan has been able to provide a lot of stability for Mississippi State. And I think you saw it this weekend. I mean, a very talented Texas A&M team came into Starkville, and Mississippi State came out on top. And that was exciting to see. And so I think it's always important as you go through the highs and the lows of a season. And there's been some lows for Mississippi State. There's been some lows for Arizona this year. You can't lose sight of the reality of what you're dealing with, and understand, hey, you got a good coach here, and is this something that you need to be patient with? And I think Dan has certainly shown with the successes that he's had, that he's worth being patient with.
We'll wrap it up there. Great conversation with Greg Byrne, John Cohen's friend. John Cohen, the new AD at MSU. Greg, of course, the AD at Arizona. I love that quote. We are an emotional buy. You hit the nail on the head there. Greg Byrne on the Out of Bounds Show. Greg, thanks so much. We'll catch up again soon.
Hey, thanks, Bo. Thanks for having me on.
Take care, Greg. Greg Byrne, athletic director at